Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do a horror edition of my favorite horror books that I'm going to recommend to you. I'll probably do other ones like Horror Edition 2, Horror Edition 3. I'm going to have a sci-fi edition of Cat Recommends. That's what I'm going to call this little series of discussions that I'm going to have on my channel. So I thought, since I love horror, I'd start with the horror. Now, since I just complained in my last video about a cosmic horror novel, and I complained that author's novels are few and far between, I thought that I would talk about T.E.D. Klein, okay, and Dark Gods. He's only written 2 books. He's written a ton of short stories in horror magazines. A lot of them are Lovecraftian. Dark Gods and the Ceremonies. And what's funny is that his name is actually Theodore. So it would be Ted, his nickname. But these are initials from his first name, middle initial, and then I think he has another name too. So I found that kind of interesting. And he's a great author. Okay, and whereas I was disappointed in the cosmic horror in A Dark Matter by Peter Straub, this was fantastic. This drew me in. I mean, I didn't want to stop reading it. I thought it was amazing, and it was very creepy. Just this underlying sense of dread in every story. Okay, it's got 4 stories in it. It's a collection. And, you know, of course, they're not related, the stories. They're all different. They're separate. And, you know, it's older. It's an older book, like maybe from the 80s, early 90s. Let me see here. I ordered this used through Amazon because it sounded fantastic. Yeah, it was in the mid-80s. 85. Yeah, 85. But I just read this last year, and I was like, wow. And I wanted more from this author, but he's only written 2. What is it with my favorite authors? They just don't write enough for me, right? Because it's all about me, isn't it? Give me more books. Just kidding. But yes, Dark Gods. And the stories are very creepy, and they're definitely cosmic horror, which is things that are beyond your understanding. Humans cannot understand it. Just creepiness and frightening episodes that just, it's beyond you. And like I said earlier, the sense of dread when you read these stories is amazing. That's what I want. I want to be creeped out. I want to be worried for the characters. I want to be scared in a horror novel or a horror collection like this. If you love cosmic horror like I do, if you love Lovecraftian mythos, this is the type of book that I think that you should give it a try. Okay, so that's Dark Gods by T.E.D. Klein. The stories are, you know what, maybe I'll give you just a little bit of an idea of what the stories are about in here, okay? Now, his book, The Ceremonies, I want to read this. And it's like, it's one story. It's a novel. It's not a bunch of stories like this one. But Children of the Kingdom, okay, this takes place in a city. And hidden in the shadows in this city, there are mysterious goings on. And you get little hints here and there. And you know from the hints that something is going on, that it's not going to be good. Okay? I mean, it's danger. Okay, and it takes place, it revolves around a man and his dad who's staying in a retirement home. And then Petey. Petey is about this housewarming party where something strange is going on because, and it has something to do with the people who used to live in that house. These people got this house amazingly cheap. It was too good to be true. And slowly, weird things start happening. And you start to think that maybe Petey is some sort of an offspring or experiment that the other people left behind, but you never quite get to the truth. But while, you know, the guests are going through this stuff, I mean, it's exciting. It really was exciting to me, just anticipating what was going to happen next. Black Man with a Horn is about a guy who visited these people, very secluded natives on an island, or maybe it was a mountain, that they're very hostile and nobody can get to them hardly. And this man visited them, and apparently he offended somebody in the tribe or something. I'm not sure. It was last year, but I know that it revolved around this tribe and offending this tribe. And so he was kind of being chased or haunted by the black man with a horn. And it looked like he had a horn, but it was really an appendage on his body. Not like a real horn, like he was carrying around a saxophone or a French horn or whatever. It just looked like that. And he would see this man with a horn everywhere. A lot of paranoia. Excellent paranoia. And then Nadelman's God was about creating a demon from your imagination and it becomes real. So I recommend it. I'm going to put that there. Okay. Now this is a young adult novel. Anna Dressed in Blood. This is another young adult novel that was on a list of, you've got to read this horror. So I did. And I liked it. Anna Dressed in Blood is about this murderous ghost. And there's a lot of gore in here. The atmosphere is great. I mean, this is a true haunted house story. But for some reason, Anna makes a connection with this ghost hunter who's planning on destroying her. And they fall in love. I know that sounds really, really bizarre, but trust me, this is a really good book. The only downfall to it, I did not like the other girl in there that hung around the ghost hunter. She just annoyed me. She was like one of those characters that it was obvious the author wanted you to like her and think that she was a tough cookie and smart, and it just didn't sit well with me. But luckily, she wasn't in the book that much, and the other characters were really, really amazing. They had a lot of depth. And you could like picture the way Kendall Blake describes the killings in this book. You could literally picture it. I mean, she's very descriptive and it's very good. So this is Anna Dressed in Blood. Excuse me, did I just spit on my book accidentally? Dang. I knew I should have taken a drink before I started this video. All right, now, the reason I have this is not a favorite. I haven't even read this yet, but I wanted to comment on how young adult novels have changed throughout the years. This used to be the size of a young adult novel when I was growing up, like with Lois Duncan. She was a great author. I don't know if she writes anymore, but Lois Duncan, her books have been made into different TV movies. Oh, you know what? That movie, I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's based on a Lois Duncan book. Well, anyway, this is just to compare. I've noticed that a lot of young adult novels these days are like this thick, or even thicker. And they look like, you know, regular adult novels. Whereas we got these skinny little things when I was growing up. This is just to show you a comparison. Okay? This definitely is not a horror book. Okay. Now, this next one is a gem. Okay? I had no idea that I was going to love this book so much. Okay? It's called Afternoon of the Gosling. I took a chance on this. I saw this available on, I think it was Paperback Swap. And I thought, and I couldn't find anything about it. I didn't know what it was about. I couldn't find any reviews. So I was like, okay, what the heck, I'll just try it. And I wasn't expecting it to be that good. It was great. The psychological horror in this, and let me tell you something, there's nothing more chilling than evil children. This little witch and that's putting it mildly. I want to use the B word because that would be closer to the truth. She's just complete evil. I'll read the back of it for you. The reason they call it Afternoon of the Gosling is because there's something that happens with these goslings in it, and they compare it to her, to this child. On the front it says, she was just the sweetest little girl. She was a darling little angel. Pretty Cerise Thayer was a minister's daughter, and she liked doing good, useful things. She enjoyed killing little animals and sending them to heaven. She liked lighting matches and starting beautiful fires, and she was sure that heaven was rewarding her. Why, all she had to do was pray, and she could get anything she wanted. She could make it so that her best friends wouldn't be mean to her ever again. And she could fix things so that her screechy little sister would stop pestering her for good. It was so easy. Trouble was, nobody would believe her when she told them how special and blessed she was. So now she was just going to have to show them. Ooh, very creepy. Whenever I read the back of this when I got it, I was like, yep, I made the right choice. I'm glad that I took a chance. And oh, trust me, you need to read this if you like creepy little kid books. Because I thought that this was actually brilliant. This would be on the list of one of my all-time favorite horror novels. And the horror was mainly psychological. And then, when you've got two stupid parents, that makes it even scarier because you can see things that they can't see, and it just ticks you off because you're like, oh, you dummies. And nobody's listening to you. And so that's what's even more frightening. Okay, now the last one that I want to show, and believe me, this is only my first edition of Cat Recommends Horror. This is not a novel. This is a reference book. It's an encyclopedia, but I read it over and over again because it's just so interesting. I mean, there's so many things in here to learn. This is called Encyclopedia Cthulhuana. And Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft, he made up this whole mythos of this creature from the stars called Cthulhu, and then all his followers, the old ones, the deep ones, mostly having to do with underwater, under the ocean, where they're staying, where they're living. Now that they came from the stars, they're living in the oceans. And then after H.P. Lovecraft died, other authors picked up on the stories and wrote their own stories, which I've read a lot of. But this just tells you, this just gets you into it. All the different characters that are in the Cthulhu mythos, all the different cities and milieus that are in the Cthulhu mythos. I'll just give you one example because this has a lot of info in it. Let me pick a part from this. Okay. The Dwellers in the Depths. Book on Cthulhu and his minions, written by Gaston Lefay, who, according to the book's introduction, died insane. It was later published in both French and English editions. This book details the race of aquatic beings known as Deep Ones and hints at the monstrous entities which they often worship. Okay, and then it says See Deep One, and then it tells you another story about the Deep Ones, The Aquarium by Carl Jacobi. This is pretty in-depth. I mean, it looks like a smaller book, but it's in-depth when it comes to the Cthulhu mythos. So, the Floating Horror. I remember this one. That's a form of Nyarlathotep. I mean, these names, oh my gosh, if you can pronounce them, good for you. They're hard to pronounce. But they do give you the pronunciations in here, which is another reason that I really love this book. So this is written by Daniel Harms, and it's comprehensive. I love it. I'm always referring to it. So if you like H.P. Lovecraft, if you're interested in the Cthulhu mythos, if you haven't checked this out yet, give it a try. So here you go. Kat recommends Encyclopedia Cthulhuana, Dark Gods, Anna Dressed in Blood, and Afternoon of the Gosling. And good luck trying to get this book, folks. It might be hard for you to find it. Well, anyway, thanks for stopping by.